the Tampa Bay Rays later this afternoon, and a lot of great stuff going on, and it's a great time to be here in the Tampa Bay area. We're excited about signing today's legislation, which involves a number of things that are very important for public safety, our culture, our security, and I want to thank everybody that's been involved in that. We are joined today by folks who had a hand in this, the Lieutenant Governor from Tampa, Jay Collins. We also have our incoming Florida Senate President from down in Bradenton, Jim Boyd, who's a friend of mine. Representative Jeff Holcomb is here. And then Riley Siebel, who is here at University of South Florida, and will be speaking later today. So I don't think I have to let anybody know that we have some problems in this country, more than we should, with international terrorism. You just had this incident at Old Dominion University. Guy commits a terrorist attack. He's shouting Allahu Akbar. The media acts like they don't know the motive of that when he's doing it, but he had been somebody that had already been convicted of material support to terrorism. He was a citizen, but he was a naturalized citizen, and a lot of us are looking about that. It's like, okay, wait a minute. You come to this country, you get you probably shouldn't have been allowed in this country to begin with. You shouldn't have even qualified for naturalization, but somehow that happens. Then you get convicted for material support to terrorism. You should be denaturalized and sent back to where you came from. Why are we tolerating this type of stuff in this country? And so much of it is self-inflicted. Look back at 9/11. That was an immigration problem. These are people that were coming over and their visas expired or they had all this. This wasn't like they showed up subterranean, on the shore and they started doing this. They were open and notorious about doing this. And we see this all around the country, and a lot of it is just, I think, not doing what's right to protect the people. Some of it's political correctness. I don't really know what all goes into it, but we've been very strong in Florida from the beginning on all of this nonsense and doing whatever we can to keep the people of this state safe. And one of the things that the legislature did was you see different things. 9/11 obviously was, a massive terrorist attack, but you also see it with somebody going in with a suicide vest. You see it, somebody going in and shooting people, doing the chants. That is kind of the formal, explicit jihad actions that we see that happens in the United States, when honestly it should never happen, because you shouldn't have people in this country who hate this country, and that's a big problem with immigration for many, many decades in this country. But you see that, and you see it around the world. But then you also have a more stealth version of jihad, and that is what we see in Europe, quite frankly. Massive migration of people into these Western European countries. They don't want to be like Western Europeans. They want to take their worldview and impose that in other lands. And part of that is, of course, the imposition of Sharia, but it also goes through a whole bunch of other things. And so you have to look at this very holistically, and that's something that I've did. I mean, you remember earlier this year, last year, we were strong in designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization, designating the Council of American Islamic Relations as a foreign terrorist organization. And in fact, CARE was an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terror financing trial in American history, the Holy Land Foundation. So you see that, and okay, is that something that we want to be a part of? I mean, if there's a school that is allied with CARE, should you have any of your money going to things like that? I think not. And so part of what the legislature did in this bill was provide a statutory structure for the actions that we took earlier when we took those actions last year. It provided a process where we could identify groups that are foreign terrorist organizations, and the federal government does this all the time, and part of it is commander-in-chief. There's different things the president does, but we need to be doing that here. There was an episode in the late 1790s involving France and American diplomats, and they were having some problems, and they wanted to go negotiate, and the French were demanding money just to be able to negotiate. It was called the XYZ affair. Well, one of the, and John Marshall, who later became Chief Justice, was the one that was leading the negotiations, and the Americans just walked away. They're like, we ain't paying for that. So they come back, and one of the congressmen at the time, did a toast, and he said, in the U.S., millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute. And I think about what we're doing here. We'll do millions for public safety, millions for education, but never 1 red cent for jihad. So the legislation we'll sign today is the strongest action Florida has ever taken to protect its people from this influence, and obviously it spans finance, it spans political, it spans culture, and then of course it can be overt acts like we've seen in Old Dominion and other places around the country. I'm proud to be able to sign the bill today. I think it's something that we asked for many months ago, and I know there were a lot of folks in the legislature who were very strong in wanting to deliver something really meaningful. So this will help the state of Florida protect you. It'll help us protect your tax dollars. It'll help us protect things that should not be happening in the United States of America, but certainly shouldn't be happening in the free state of Florida. So this is going to be a big deal. We're going to have a lot of folks, I think, that are going to be appreciative. They'll sue us like they do on everything, and we'll win on appeal. Probably not in the district because they know which judge to go to, and we always lose. But we almost always win on appeal, and I think that'll end up happening with what we're doing here. Now, there's some other things that were part of this package that we may need to add in upcoming, because I think there were some things that really need. I mean, for example, Florida doesn't ban cousin marriage, and that's a hanging curveball for us to do. We need to do that. Other states have done it. I don't know why we wouldn't, but obviously that feeds in to some of the stealth jihad that we see, when you're allowing things like that. It's things that are coming in from other cultures that are not consistent with the United States culture, and certainly our culture here in Florida. So this is important, but the larger issue is we have got to stop as a country importing people that reject the values of this country. And that's just been going on for a long time. Why should we be having to referee some of the stuff that ends up happening when you should? I mean, you have Soleimani's niece here, and they just revoked her visa or whatever they did, which I support that. But I'm like, how did it get to where she was even here to begin with? What is about our laws or the administrative bureaucracy over a period of, I think, 4 or 5 years where you're coming in, you're getting this visa, getting this green, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, that is not what we need to be doing to protect the American people. And there's just this view that somehow someone just shows up and they just have a right to be in this country. You don't have a right as a foreigner to be here. And if you're somebody that's coming, is that going to benefit the American people or not? And if it's not going to benefit the American people, then why are we even having this conversation? Everything we need to do is about supporting the people that we were elected to serve. And we're doing that in this bill. I know more needs to be done throughout the country, but I think we do have momentum on our side, and we're going to keep going forward. So thanks for the folks that were involved in this and the legislature. There was a lot of citizens that were very instrumental in making sure that we did something robust this legislative session. And I know there's a lot of things out there that people want to see, and sometimes you got folks that listen to you, and sometimes they just don't want to hear it. And on this one, I think that the voices were very loud, and I don't think there was any way that they were going to be able to not deliver and deliver big. So thanks for everyone that's been involved. All right, we're going to hear from some speakers, and then I am going to sign the bill, and we'll make it official. So we'll start with our Lieutenant Governor, Jay Collins.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis. I appreciate it. It's good to be here today. Great to see so many friendly faces. I want to thank my wife, Layla, for being here today. Love you, hon. And go Bulls. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today not only as your Lieutenant Governor, but as a retired Green Beret, a warrior who spent years in the global war on terror. But most importantly, I'm here today as a dad and a husband. You know, having fought in the dust of Afghanistan and Iraq, like many, we buried friends, brothers there. Their lives dedicated to stopping a nightmare from infecting our shore and our way of life. My mission has never changed. I will always be a warrior. We will always protect and preserve our institutions, our beliefs, our values, every single day. I will not allow it to take 1 inch of ground here in the free state of Florida, and thank God we have leaders with courage, willingness to stand and fight for the things that matter. Friends, there is nowhere else to go. We are the free state of Florida because we do hard things. And in these United States of America, we have just one set of laws, one Constitution. No other law should be recognized or supersede our laws or be allowed to conflict with our Constitution. No foreign or religious legal codes should sneak into our courts. No taxpayer dollars propping up extremism or shadow jihad. Thankfully, HB 1471, Florida has drawn a bold line in the sand. No faded pastels, nothing like that here. I want to thank the legislature for your hard work on this. This is meaningful. It makes a difference for our people. And as always, I want to personally thank our governor, Ron DeSantis, for what he's done, his courage, his convictions. Now, let's just talk a little bit about a couple of those provisions that the governor mentioned. Let's talk about Sharia law. It is not some personal spiritual guide. Simply put, it is not consistent with our values or the values of our Constitution. Rather, it is a complete legal and political code drawn straight from the Quran and the words of Muhammad himself. Those are primary facts from primary sources. Under Sharia law, let us not forget that in Iran, they arrest, torture, and kill women for loose hijab. 1/5 of marriages in Iran are minors because of Sharia law. In Afghanistan, the Taliban banned women from school and silenced voices in public. I have personally seen women murdered for wanting an education and so much more. There will be no honor killings, no padding of the law. In reality, murder is murder, and in Florida, we understand that. Today, Florida says no, not now, not ever, in the free state of Florida. HB 1471 removes the possibility before it ever touches our children. It also creates a state terrorist designation process with real teeth. FDLE's chair of domestic security can flag domestic or foreign terrorist organizations. And in Florida, we have it very simply put. We will designate, defund, and dissolve people who don't stand for our values. Material support, now a felony. To give money, guns, or military training to those savages, it's a felony. Join them with intent to spill blood, also a felony. We don't play games. We will hold you accountable because that is what we have done in the free state of Florida. The education system also got a little cleanup, and it's good to see that. Private voucher schools cannot affiliate students who promote them, meaning support extra-legal violence, can get expelled, lose in-state tuition, scholarships, and fee waivers. Public universities can't spend a dime promoting terrorism or jihad. That is exactly how it should be. Now, to bring this thing in for a landing, to the ACLU, Equality Florida, CARE, and others who scream overreach because this law cuts off taxpayer cash to groups aligned with ideologies that are not commensurate or consistent with our Constitution and way of life, I hope you never have to hear the screams of children, women, or the innocent. We will stand for our principles that you want to blemish and ignore. But don't fall for the rhetoric and insert political games in this state. HB 1471 is not about politics. It is about keeping our people safe, Florida safe, preserving American values, keeping our laws American, and keeping our children from all walks of life out of the crosshairs of extremism. If you support groups that want to replace our Constitution with barbaric law, Florida has a message. I have a message. We see you, we will designate you, and we will destroy your ability to operate here, period. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless the free state of Florida.
Hard to follow those two, but I'll attempt. The governor and the lieutenant governor have basically spelled out what this good bill does. On behalf of Senator Grahl and Representative Cassell, the Representative Holcomb and I are here today to support them in their good work on this bill. Just simply said, Florida will protect, and your elected officials, who one of our most basic and fundamental duties is to protect our citizens. We will do that. We will protect the Constitution. As has been said, we will not spend taxpayer dollars on some of these fringe organizations that are here to hurt and to kill our citizens. So know that your Florida legislature stands with the governor and the lieutenant governor in fighting for what's right. We will continue this fight. We will win. We are winning, and we will continue to win. Thank you for being here. Governor, thank you so much for your leadership.
Good morning. My name is Riley Seibel, and I'm a senior at the University of South Florida. I'd first like to thank Governor Ron DeSantis for the opportunity to speak today, as well as the Florida legislature for presenting the bill being signed. In April 2024, my campus experienced something that many of us will never forget. What began as a peaceful protest in support of Palestine quickly shifted into something far more concerning. Just a few weeks before the protest, I had been on a campus tour, walking in the same areas, admiring the beauty of USF. So when I found myself watching the events unfold on the news, I was in complete shock. Around 100 students and community members gathered outside the Student Center, many exercising their right to free speech in a respectful and lawful way. However, as the situation developed, it became clear that everyone present did not share that same intention. Reports indicated that some individuals were planning to use items as weapons against law enforcement officers who were there to maintain safety and order. Even more alarming, one individual was found carrying a firearm tucked into their waistband. In that moment, what should have remained a peaceful demonstration became a situation that threatened the safety of students, faculty, and law enforcement. 10 individuals were arrested, and the campus community was left shaken. For many of us, it was a stark reminder that while free speech is a fundamental right, it must be exercised responsibly and without violence. That experience is exactly why today's bill is so important. It brings a sense of reassurance to students like myself, knowing that there are clear boundaries in place to protect us from organizations that promote violence, intimidation, or terror. College campuses should be a place of learning, growth, and open dialogue, not environments where students feel unsafe or threatened. Knowing that domestic terrorist organizations and groups with violent intent will not be tolerated on our campus brings a level of calm and security that cannot be overstated. When we look beyond our campuses to broader concerns, including dangerous organizations like MS-13 or Tren de Aragua, it becomes more clear how critical it is to take a firm stance early. Prevention matters, drawing lines matter, and protecting students' lives matter. At the same time, it is equally important to recognize that universities should be spaces where a wide range of perspectives can be shared. That is something I have personally experienced with my involvement with Turning Point USA. I've been a member for a little over a year, and during my time, I've seen firsthand how respectful, organized, and lawful engagement can be very impactful. When we hosted Charlie Kirk back in February 2025, it served as a strong example of how student organizations, regardless of a political affiliation, should operate. The event was structured, secured, and allowed for the exchange of ideas without crossing lines into chaos or harm. This is the standard we should strive for. We absolutely need opposing viewpoints on campus. We need conversations, debates, and even disagreements. But the moment an organization violates the student code of conduct, promotes violence, or crosses into supporting domestic terrorism, that's where the line must be drawn. There must be accountability. As a student, I am incredibly grateful to live in the state of Florida, a state that prioritizes both freedom and safety. I'm proud to be a bull at the University of South Florida, a school that works in cooperation with the state leadership to assure that students are protected and that campus organizations are held at a high standard. It is reassuring to know that our state government is not turning a blind eye to these issues, but instead is taking proactive steps to address them. That kind of leadership makes a difference in everyday lives of students like myself. In closing, today's bill represents more than just a policy. It represents a commitment to student safety, a commitment to responsible freedom, and a commitment to assuring that our campuses remain places where ideas can be shared without fear. My experience at USF shows me how quickly things can escalate when that balance is lost. But today, standing here, I am hopeful. Hopeful that with measures like this in place, we can protect both our rights and safety moving forward. Thank you again, Governor DeSantis, and everyone involved for making this possible. It was an honor to be here today.
You're going to stay up here. We're going to sign this. All right. Today, I believe, is the 6th. Is that correct, of April?
Yes, sir.
Okay, who wants one?
Send one to her.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone in the peanut gallery want one? All right, here we go. Well, that'll be meaningful, and I know that FDLE, they're going to be working already on formulating the folks that we are going to designate. And I had mentioned the brotherhood and care, but you also have Antifa that needs to be taken care of. You've got Tren de Aragua. We got a lot of things that we've got to get right on here. So this bill gives us the framework to do it, and expect us to be very zealous and robust in how we approach dealing with these groups, particularly when it comes to protecting public safety and protecting your tax dollars from going to any of these institutions. So, okay, do we have any questions in the back?
Yeah, Governor, we're 2 weeks away from the scheduled special session on congressional redistricting. You have said that's not to be done for partisan reasons, but because you'll be forced to because the U.S. Supreme Court will weigh in on the Voting Rights Act.
Among other reasons, I mean, what I've said is Florida has experienced 10 years worth of population growth in like 3. And so if you look, our districts are not fairly apportioned because of that. Now, it wasn't the fault of the people that did the maps, and you still got to use the baseline 2020 data, but I think when you're looking at that, how do you make that work? I think that's something that's totally appropriate. I also think we know how that Supreme Court case is going to come out at this point. I don't think there's much of a dispute about that, and I think Justice Alito's writing the opinion. So us looking at our map, understanding the issues in that case, and fixing it, I think that's appropriate, whether the decision comes before we do it or after. And it'll obviously come sometime between now and the end of June. Normally, cases in October would come down sometime in the spring, but this is a case where you're probably going to have dissents or whatnot. But I'm very confident if there's a map that is consistent with what that opinion will eventually say, that's going to be a map that is going to be upheld going forward. So there's a variety of reasons to be able to do it. As you know, Florida has rules about how the legislature is able to draw. You can't do what they did in California. You have to do it. Our map now is very, very nicely drawn. Now, I didn't do it, but the guys that did it, they did a great job. And the people that try to say this or that about it are not being honest, because it is what it is. So that'll get done. I know they got to do the budget. I know Jim's here. Maybe I'll talk with him about where that stands afterwards, and maybe some other things too. As you know, we're working on well, we're not really. We know property tax needs to get done. So we're working to kind of get with the key people to get that off and running on the ballot, and people it's going to be a lot of excitement for people to be able to vote to protect their homestead from tax. I think that's something that we can do in Florida. A lot of people don't realize that property tax doesn't go to the state at all. That's not how it's all local. And in 2019, my first year as governor, local governments were taking in about $32 billion in property tax revenue for all these different things. Today, it's $60 billion. And the question is, we've had population growth, we've had inflation, obviously. I mean, we've had to put money back in the kitty to fund projects we thought were fully funded years ago. I remember those days. And, and even throwing in some increases here or there, fine. You are not even close to needing $60 billion. And so do you want to keep on that trajectory where the projection is, starting with 2019, they were at $32 billion. By 2031 or 32, it's going to be $84 billion. I mean, really, that's almost a tripling of property tax in a 10 to 15-year period. I think we can do, and people say, oh, well, you can't do property tax. You're not going to have any money. Did we not have public safety or schools and all this in 2019 when they were getting $32 billion? Of course you did. Of course you did. And so you'll be able to do. But I think that a lot of people have been pinched by this, but I don't think people appreciate just how much more these governments are taking in. And here's the thing. Our proposal, you want to tax someone that's got 10 Airbnbs, fine. You're going to tax someone, some guy from Brazil that buys a house in Coconut Grove, man, tax, fine. But our residents that have that homestead property, we think that needs to be sacrosanct. So that's going to be a huge thing. But I don't think you'll find a better state to be in from a taxpayer's perspective if we get that done. Well, is there a danger in the, is Jim Boyd going to become Senate president and try to institute Sharia on Florida? Obviously not, right? But I think what you see is this creep into different institutions. Like, look what's happened in Europe. Like Britain, they're not being governed over through Parliament and by Sharia, but you have no-go zones there. They have communities where they apply Sharia in the community. And so that's different than having a legislature enact it. Now, I think demographically, the goal of a lot of these groups in Europe is to eventually get to where they have sufficient numbers that they can impose it through the political process. And at that point, and that's the thing. I remember when I was in Iraq, we were supposed to have a democracy and freedom in Iraq. And the thing is, you talk to these people on the ground, these were Sunni Arabs. Their view of freedom was Sharia. That's what they viewed freedom was. And so it's a totally different concept. But what I see happening in Europe, I see a migration not to assimilate, but to displace the current cultures that are there. And so we obviously are not going to allow that to happen here in the state of Florida. But the bill also does a lot of other things involving institutions or group that are linked to any terrorist organization. And again, you can have these groups that may not be waging physical war-type jihad. They may be waging a stealth jihad. They may be waging a financial jihad. To me, that's still jihad, and we've got to stop it. And this bill provides the structure to be able to do it. But I don't. So I think the threat is a little bit more nuanced than to just say all of a sudden we're going to wake up and the legislature is going to do that. That of course that won't happen anytime soon. But the more that we're able to do to protect against that, I think is going to benefit Floridians for many, many years. You know, they're talking about in like Texas doing these like massive housing developments that are governed by Sharia. That's a non-starter in Florida. That is not something that is going to work. So it's those types of things rather than just saying all of a sudden the Florida legislature is going to start to implement. But yeah, so this was good. And again, what we've done in Florida time and time again is we get ahead of things before other states are doing it. So this is probably the most robust action that's been taken anywhere in the country. But would you expect anything different from us? I mean, that's kind of what we do. Oh, you shouldn't be worried about this. You know, I think it's some of the fights that we've had over the years. I mean, I remember we were fighting against the masks on the school kids. And at the time, oh my gosh, you can't. Now everybody looks back, and it was an embarrassment in this country that you had these 5-year-old kids suffocating for 8 hours a day in these masks. They didn't protect them from anything. They did accumulate a lot of germs and probably made it to where they're catching other things. But it's like, you know, so we were so far ahead of that. Now we were ahead against the corporate wokeness. You know, we had the little tussle with Disney. But at the time, these corporations were trying to impose this worldview through now, that doesn't happen in Florida. You don't see that anymore. So it's like, okay, had we not stepped up, who knows what would have ended up happening. You look at some of the curriculum in schools that we put our foot down on, trying to do indoctrination, particularly of the youth, on gender ideology and things. Now you see the tide's turned on that. You know, we got into it when we were very much swimming upstream. So that's just what we do, and we want to make sure that we're doing it in ways that are going to be really meaningful. And look, we're not trying to set the standard for others, but I think the reality is we've typically set the standard for others. Yes, ma'am. I think everybody knows that when I got something on my mind and I want to let people to know that people know. It's not like we're not going to be shy about anything about what we're doing, and so it's not there's not going to be any type of mysteries. Like, you know, if I feel the need to do something, I do it, and so you guys can stand by and just watch. Well, first of all, FDLE is going to do what intelligence and law enforcement agencies have been doing at the federal level for many decades in this country. Now, this is not just flying off the seat of your pants. This is something where we want to make sure that we do not have particularly state resources flowing to groups that are appendages of these designated terrorist organizations. And the federal government, under the Trump administration, has identified the Sunni Muslim Brotherhood. And I know that there's like, well, maybe they're not going to do Qatar. I don't know, like, kind of how that's landed. I can tell for us, you know, we're whole hog. Sunni Muslim Brotherhood is a DTO. That was what my executive order said. I would imagine that will be ratified when FDLE goes through their analysis. I mean, we weren't just doing this just to do it. This is stuff, there's been a record built up over many, many years. Now, until the feds had said they were going to proceed against the Brotherhood, we didn't want to be in a position where, we were going opposite, because they obviously have insight on different things. But once they acknowledged that this was something that was appropriate, we felt that we had the wherewithal to be able to use our authority to do it. Now you have statutory authority that is going to be added to that, and that's going to make a really, really big difference. So, look, I'm happy with this. I want to thank the folks in the legislature for stepping up and getting the job done. We've got more work to do. Obviously, there'll be other bills that'll be signed that I think are going to be very meaningful for this country's future, but then there's also a lot left to do. So I think the month of April should be a pretty eventful month in terms of some of the issues that are still hanging out there. And I think I speak for most of the members, whereas I think they want to get the job done, and then they want to put a bow on it, and they want to go, back to their families, back to their jobs, and then those are running in cycle. They want to be out there campaigning. I mean, it could be a tough election cycle for Republicans. I mean, obviously we've had some hiccups along the way, and so the question is, you don't want to have me like dragging you in for 3 or 4 months, or do you just want to get the job done? I know where Jim stands on that, and Ben and some, but now's the time to kind of get the job done and move forward. We really showed the country for many, many years how to do bold policy, get it done, deliver results, and I can tick off. I mean, you guys who've come to any of my events have heard me tick off, we've paid off 50% of the state's debt, we have tripled the rainy day fund, we've cut taxes by this, we've done this, and it's great, and all that. But part of it is, there's ways that you govern, right? We have an approach like during the hurricanes where we get the job done in the aftermath. There's different things you have to do. I mean, when we had to do the rescues in the Middle East last summer, we just get the job done, right? And I think similarly, like the legislature for 6 years, get that budget done on time, put a bow on it, everybody's happy. That could still be the norm. And so hopefully, we see that over the next few weeks, because I think it'll be really meaningful. And in the meantime, what I'll say is go Rays. Hopefully they beat the Cubs today.